everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video we are going to be deflasking some little baby orchids from their orchi-packs. These are ones that I purchased from Roellke Orchideen in Germany, and I will link you to the unboxing video for these down below, as well as hopefully in the corner here. But these are some little orchid babies. They're basically, I think they're on their second flasking. So initially, usually, orchid seeds would be sown into a much larger container than this, traditionally, and then at a second stage they'd have a media change and be decanted into slightly smaller pots with just a few orchids in each pot, rather than the giant flasks. So that's what I've got here, and these guys are ready for deflasking. They're kind of touching the tops of the pots, and we've also got some mould growing in them, which is a indicator that this needs doing urgently. Any breach of the flask breaches sterility, and once that happens, mould can just take over the whole flask, so that can damage the baby orchids in there. So we need to get these guys out and pot them up into their first little baby pots, and these are still going to be probably 3 to 4 years from flowering size at this stage, depending on the orchid. Some of these are miniatures, so this is a little Sophronites hybrid, so that one might flower a little bit sooner. I'm not sure on the Angrecum. It's quite a rare one, so do our best to take care of it. And there's an RLC, so Rhyncholalia cattleya. So I'd say probably 3 to 4 years from flowering, but we will have to see. As you can see, there's some lovely liquid sloshing around in there from where the flask has been breached. And you can see, yeah, I'm not particularly happy with the state of this one either. The only one that's intact is the little Angrecum, which is good. So we're going to get them out of their little orchid pots and go through the deflasking process. Okay, so the orchids themselves don't actually need to be sterile. What needs to be kept sterile is the media that they're growing in, because the media that they're growing in is a complete media containing all of the nutrients that little orchids need to survive. This is also all of the nutrients that bacteria and fungal spores love to grow in, and once that sort of takes over the flask, that becomes quite a major issue. So that is why it needs to be done in as clean a manner as possible. Once they're out of the flask, it's no problem because we'll have air circulation that'll stop them from multiplying. But my concern is with flask babies that they have very little immune systems, so they've been kept in a very sterile container. So that's my only kind of concern with that. So I'm going to be doing things as cleanly as possible, just because as far as I'm concerned, they're probably same sort of immune system as a baby right now. They've not been exposed to any sort of fungal or bacterial pathogens before. Well, I say that, they shouldn't have been, but we do have some bacteria growing in these. So everything's been sterilised, and I've got some little pots here of lukewarm water, so it's been boiled and then cooled. And we need to be sure to not mix up IDs when deflasking, which is a major concern. So, and that is the first hybrid that we're deflasking. Okay, so we've got 2 tags for each, and I'm going to be putting those by the little wash stations that they're going to go into. So this one is the Sophronites Arizona crossed with Cattletonia Red Rum. And you can see the stuff kind of growing in there. So into lukewarm water, we don't want hot or cold water. Just going to gently pick out the little baby orchids and just wash off the media from them. Comes off very, very easily. And once that's done, we just want to put them onto a little bit of paper towel to dry off. Got quite a few in here. It said 4 to 5, but we've got more than that. And these ones are very, very little babies. So the media comes off very easily just by dunking a few times into tepid water. Let's try and give you a little bit of better view of what I'm doing here. And you don't need to worry too much about, oh, that one does not look so good. I would say that's a goner. It's kind of rotted. You can see the different stages in development, like look at the root that this one has compared to some of the other ones. And I think in there are a few little green bits I'm going to try and fish out if they're very baby orchids. So these are like some of the very first stage, maybe later. So maybe the seeds were sown directly into these flasks. Can you see? Just a little tiny little baby there. Can't really see anything else buried in the sludge here, so I think that that's it for this flask. Just spraying my gloved hands down with ethanol before we move on to the next ones. So those are, there's quite a few in that little flask actually. So next we're going to do the Angrecum. And this one has an intact flask, so there's nothing nasty growing in there, that's remained sterile. And these ones have actually got structures that you'd recognise them for the orchid that they are. They are a little bit older, I think. So that's those ones drying. And then this is the worst offender for leakage. Oh, there's some warnings on the back there. Do not eat the orchids or the media. It's good to know. I was definitely considering having a little munch on these. No, I guess, yeah, it's good not to leave them around like with kids or pets or anything. And we get a lot of fungus or bacteria in these, but luckily it hasn't taken over the flask or anything. The orchids all seem to be okay still. Yum. So that is what contamination of a flask looks like. Okay, so we are just going to leave the little babies to dry off now, and I will get rid of the dirty water and the old flasks, and I'll be right back. Okay, and we are back with our little flask babies, and these guys have been drying off for a little bit. They're not totally dry yet, but we're going to get started with working with them. So they're all washed off, semi-dried, labelled up. We're going to be splitting them each into two because I want to test out a comparison between Sphagnum and a different media, Inorganic Media, Seramis, mixed with pumice for these guys. Basically, you want a nice moisture retentive media for them. It doesn't matter too much what you use, it's dependent on your environment as always, but basically, regardless of the needs of the parents, You need to treat all seedlings basically the same until they form structures and kind of start to resemble their parent plants. So for example, a Vanda seedling, you would definitely still put in moss because they don't have structures that can store water and nutrients yet. They still need a very moist environment, so the needs of seedlings are very different to the needs of their adult counterparts, which is where I went wrong the first time I dealt with the recently deflasked seedlings, and I put some Vandas. I tried to grow them as you would Vandas, which was stupid, and they didn't do well, and then I put them in Sphagnum and they're fine now and recovering. They're now in synthetic mixes, actually. They're quite a bit bigger. But yeah, basically these little guys, they all have the same requirements, whether they're Cattleyas, an Angrecum, a Phalaenopsis, or a Vanda seedling. Whatever you've got as a seedling, it still requires much more moisture and a much more sort of friendly and protected environment than the parent plant would. So I've got some little pots I prepared earlier. So these are just little cups for them. So we're going to split each into two. So for example, for the Angrecum, we're going to have 2 plants per cup. The Sophronites are very tiny, so we're still going to put sort of 3 to 4 plants per cup. So we've got 6 cups in total. And 1 cup is going to be like a Sphagnum type self-watering system with perlite to try and create some aeration. And 1/2 is going to be a seramis mix for them. So if we start, I'm going to get some out of the way so I don't knock them over while I'm working with them. So we're going to start with the RLC Cordelia, which is Cattleya intermedia crossed with Rhyncholaelia digbyana. And one of them we're going to put in like a moss container. So just for drainage and to wick moisture evenly, I've got a layer of lacquer at the bottom. And the same for the seramis container. And then for the seramis, I'm going to mix in some pumice as well to try and increase the kind of aeration of that. So I sterilised these medias beforehand. So we've got one quite big one with quite a lot of roots, so that's going to go in first. And we're going to try and divide them fairly evenly between them so we get like an average. So we've got 5 big plants and 1 tiny little one. So and then we're just going to put a top layer of the horticultural grit on that to stop algae forming. And just put 1 name tag into that one. And then we're going to do our Sphagnum one. This has got quite a lot of perlite in to try and keep it nice and airy for them. And then we're just going to put that very tiny one in as well, because why not? It's got a root and it's green, so it's just going to be a little bit behind the other ones, that's all. And you just want to be careful not to bury them in whatever media you're putting in, because they can be a little bit prone to rotting. So that is the little Sphagnum pot for them. So these are the little Angrecums. And again, we're going to do exactly the same and have 1 Sphagnum pot and 1 seramis pot. Okay, and then last, I'm going to do the one we've got the most of, which is the little Sophronites. So that one has quite the big root on it. Little cutie. So, go there. Okay, so these little guys are very tiny. Okay, so there's my little seedlings all potted up. And now I'm just going to explain a little bit about how I'm planning on caring for these guys. So I have behind them a little tray, which is basically a little propagator, a little heated propagator. So I've used this for germinating other types of seeds before. And it comes with a lid. And the last time I dealt with baby orchids, what I did was I used this and I kept the lid off, but I just kind of kept it nicely humid. So basically used this as like a little humidity tray, but also kept them nicely warm in it. So that way they'll be kept warm, but also if I keep a little bit of water in the bottom, be like a water bath, it'll be more gentle heat, and it'll also raise the relative humidity around them without having to put the top on these, because in my environment, whenever I kind of try like a sphagnum bag type effort, I end up with mould, and these guys are not going to want mould. So we're just going to keep them in the little heated propagator. Use this as like a water bath, raise the humidity around there, but there's going to be plenty of airflow still. So hopefully they'll enjoy it, and obviously I will update you guys on how they're doing and whether we have any noticeable differences in growth between the seramis and the moss, or whether the seramis was just an awful idea and I have to come back and redo them. But that's kind of my little seedling trays. So thanks so much for watching this second attempt for me for deflasking some orchid seedlings, and I thought it'd be super fun to do this as a project with you guys and track the progress of them. And thank you so much for watching today, and if you enjoyed this video then don't forget to give it a like or subscribe to my channel for more regular orchid updates, and I will see you guys later. Bye!